Hey, welcome back, everyone. I hope you're keeping well. How are you? It's been a while. Sorry, we're not able to get back to you 2 weeks ago and continue our conversation. Just been traveling, and so we're back again on what we started. We are reviewing the book of Steve Farrar on the appointment. We're having a reflection on how God has invited us as men to be appointment of our home for us to lead our family with grace. And last week we discussed in the episode, or some week in the last episode, not last week because it's been 2 weeks now, we had a conversation on parenthood. And the key takeaway for us that week, when we're talking about that we have been called to live for our children, and living for them is not just making that provision, but that we should raise them in godly way. And so there was a lot of foundational point that we stated that either you like it or not, there's an attack against the family. There's a war that was declared even before you thought of getting married, even before you were born. So it's better you start preparing even before marriage. But when you also get into marriage, know that it's a target against your children. When you were also a child, there was a target against you, and now there's a target against your children or whatever situation. You say, okay, well, I will not have children. Well, even with that, there will still be a target on you and your wife. So it's a war that you cannot run away from. And so as men, we've been called to be the lead, to see our family as our soldiers, our men that are under our care, that we must leave no man behind. We'll bring every one of them in, and we'll share a lot of tips that can help us do that. But we say just beyond providing for the physical needs of our kids, that it's important for us to be an example for them in words and in action. And we also conclude by saying that prayer is also a powerful tool that we can use to help our kids. Pray for them, invest in their life, just release the power of God even over their spirit. And so today, in part 2 of that conversation, we'll be focusing on the season of marriage. The season of marriage. Many of us have been called into marriage, or even if you're not yet married, you're going to get married in the future. It's a season. It's a season. You're going to just be with it, and this season is all through your life until you're here on earth. And so you must be prepared to really defend, to really understand what are the concepts, what are the basic distances. And so one of what Steve Farrar was talking about was using the analogy of the Marine Corps. I know that the Marine Corps, one of the key recruitment processes, they say, they're looking for few good men out there, because the Marine Corps is believed to be one of the most highly sophisticated and trained soldiers with discipline and precision, and to always look out for good and to keep society safe. And so just see yourself as a Marine Corps in the area of marriage, that God has recruited you. He has brought you as a husband into this world. So he has looked up to you as one of the few good men out there to help save the institution of marriage. So once you have that at the back of your mind, then you can set out to really enjoy the season of marriage. And one that is that together with you and your wife, you want to say, God, the seeds that you're going to give us, we want to preserve them. We want them to be great. And so he shared a very unique story in the book, and I think it's a story that I would like to share with you today. So he was talking about Jonathan Edwards. If you don't know about Jonathan Edwards, just Google him out. So he really made a difference at the place of marriage in his life. He was born in 1703, and so he was the man, even in history, that it's always said he's perhaps one of the most brilliant men that America, or mind that America has ever had in its history. And so he was a pastor, a writer, and so, but later he became the president of Princeton University. And so, with his wife, they had 11 children. But let's look at something that was unique about them in the research that was done about them. They had 11 children, and of his known male descendant, not just the female descendant, his known male descendant. When the research was done, and about 300 of them. So if you trace his generation from 17 when he was born, that's 17 when he grew up, married, and have his 11 children, up to at the time this book was written, which is something some couple of maybe 20-30 years ago, and which is way more than that, 1990 when this book was written. That's the first edition, and it was rewritten again updated in 2023, and you see that 300 of them became pastors, missionaries, or some of them became theological professors. See, that was a godly seed. He preserved, he won the war as a marine. That's not all. 120 of them were became professors at various universities. 110 of them became lawyers, they were attorneys. Then 60 of them became prominent authors that wrote a lot of books. 30 of them were judges, and just lawyers. So you remember that 110 was the lawyers, they are different. Then 30 of them were judges. 14 of them served as president of universities and colleges in the United States. And we have 3 of them served in the US Congress. And 1 of them became the vice president of the United States of America. So you can see that this man made a difference in his lifetime. He's no longer here, but he saved all the boys in his hand. He was able to stand because there's a battle, there's a war coming against the boys in this generation, and that is where you must help in your season of marriage to really do this. He made a great difference. Though he was not, he had different. He studied 13 hours. He reads and all of that, but he came home with habit to spend time with his children. Like this man was spending time working, but he still never failed to come home to spend time with his kids. So Edwards was one of the great minds of history. Yet, and this word scholar had his priority right, and that's what I'm reading for you from the book of Steve Farrar's book. He said he not only made sure he made it home for dinner, but he got in at least 1 hour of family time each night. Yeah, so it's my guess that Edward made a difference in generation after generation because he understood his God appointment role as a husband and father. And it's important you do that because most times when we get into leadership or we get into job, sales job, sometimes we fail because the job takes away what we do. And so we need to really be the link, the chain between generations after generation, because godly men, that's what God is looking for. God wants to produce godly men that will link from generation to generation. So the question will be that, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? You really need to be careful, because if you don't make this time, if you're not disciplined, imagine somebody studying 13 hours a day, writing, doing everything. He comes home, create time for his kids, play with them, and they eat together. He never misses dinner with them. Yeah, we know sometimes it can happen. You might travel, you might have other things. Yes, it's okay when it happens, but don't make it a habit to just run away from them, because some of us will say, well, am I not providing food for the kids? Yes, food is important, but beyond food, what are you doing? What are you doing to just be there for them? So how do you do this apart from what we've just said, giving an example of that discipline demonstrated by Jonathan Edwards? And some other things you need to do is that you need to name words the way they are, or the way it is. We're in a generation that people manipulate words. You can say like adultery, they now call it affair. No, adultery is not affair. Affair, just using the word out, he had an affair, just to reduce the gravity of what adultery means. And so it's important that you name those things, and so you can run away from them. When you cheat, when you do evil things, you need to name them and take responsibility. And so righteousness shouldn't only be in the church. Righteousness should be everywhere you find yourself, in your house, when you're alone, when you're traveling, when you do everything. Pursue righteousness. It's not easy, but we need to be committed as men to do this. We need to challenge ourselves. And we must always remember, anywhere we go, that the culture of heaven trumps any culture on earth, wherever we find ourselves. Wherever we find ourselves, the culture of heaven trumps. And so in the season of marriage, you need to bring the culture of heaven, not earthly culture. There's a lot of writing out there. People say different things and about marriage. They just castigate it. People bring different kind of point, but no. Your Bible is the ultimate guide for marriage. What has God said? And we have also been called to be a one-woman kind of man. I know people will raise excuses in the Bible that David had, this Solomon had this. Those were not God's way for them. They were just season and an era. But we've been called to be one man, one wife, and that is that. There's Bible to support it. There's the teaching of the Spirit to do. The Bible says, "He that when He made them in the beginning, He that made them in the beginning made them what? Male and female." And so it's one. And so you need to understand, because there's a concept of trying to understand that there's a one man, one woman. It also helps you to run away from the issue of having adultery, or the issue of even cheating. Not necessarily even having adultery, but the way to be disciplined, to be focused. Remember when we're talking about discipline and eye focus in terms of running away from sexual temptation as men. And this is one way for you to see it done. You are not made for every woman out there. Once you are married, once you have your own, then you have just to stay. And so it's important to know that the spirit of this age, whether expressed in athleticism, in business, in politics, or marriage, maintains that commitment should be honored only while convenient. That's what he's preaching now, but that is not what heaven is saying. When commitment become inconvenient, people just bag it, people just go away from it. So he quoted from Burton Hill. This is what Burton Hill said, there is a mighty big difference between good sounds reason and reason that sound good. And so generally speaking, our society believes that only one commitment sounds good, the right to be happy. And that's what they're saying. So, you deserve happiness. Why not that? Now time we even have what they call happy hours now. And you go and do happy hour, and sometimes that's the end of you. That's where you fall, that's where you cheat against your family. But we must know that commitment cannot become cheap in the kingdom. For us as men, it can never become cheap in the kingdom. So we need to pursue that. I want to know what is important for us. On our wedding days or other things, we say a lot of significant things, but a lot of us, we say, we promise to be committed in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, until death will do us apart. And so, but we make this vow in front of our family and friends, and sometimes we also give ring as a sign of commitment. But every time you look at those things, what comes to your mind? You should be reminded about commitment. So on your wedding day, you have to do everything right, except you have to also ensure that when it's ending, one of the things that preachers don't say in churches, or we don't hear at that point, is that the day after just fixing that ring and praying, we need to always burn our sheep. And what do we mean sheep? Other relationship. We need to set them on fire. And we're not saying don't make friends with people, but we mean that the closeness you have with some people, that line, you need to draw it. You need to burn those sheep, especially with the opposite sex. And so you need to burn those sheep, because when you have crossed over to the other side, it's very important for you to be able to keep yourself safe. And once you do that, you are ready even for the mission. So remember that you must always be faithful. Remember the mission. We talked about the Marine Corps. The motto of Marine Corps is the Simper Fideli, which means always faithful. So you need to remember that you're always a Simper Fideli person. So it means that you must always remain faithful, regardless of whatever personal convenience or happiness. Just take time. If you want to do that, really study the Marine Corps, then you understand what faithfulness means. And you see, then when it's that Simper Fideli, everybody knows that yes, you must always be faithful. That's why we're brothers in arms, to keep one another safe, and we must do that. So commitment means that you suck it up and you finish. No matter what happens, you have to do it. You have to understand that is the point. And so from that day, you always have that motto on you. Remember, these are some of the points we're giving. Is that one, you must adopt the motto of the Marine Corps, which means always faithful. Remember that you must burn every sheep that is not that is not part of your wife. You just burn them off, and you stay good. And you must also remember that you must always be there. Know that sometimes the devil would try to deceive you with different differences, and before you know what happened, you start losing out. You need to be careful. What do you do with your eyes? What do you do with your hands? What do you do with your free time? And that's what is so important, because most times temptation do not happen at work. When you're working, when you're doing it, most times it's what you do after work hour, or when you're free, when you're not doing anything. What are you imagining? So please take time to always remember that commitment is the goal, and you can do that by being disciplined, by being prayerful, and by being naming things. And just use Bible. Your biblical defense must sort out the idea, and you must be obedient to Christ. Obedience is that. Temptation is not the trouble. It will come. Temptation will come. But what do you do with the temptation? You need to remember. You need to put your perspective very clear. You need to have your goals very clear. And remember that commitment is that even when you get down, when you fall, don't get discouraged. I know if you're having a very tough time with your thought life, but just start practicing. It normally takes time for you to begin to make progress. So you just need to learn to deal with all your wrong thoughts, take them to the Lord in prayer, work on them, and so after several times you begin to see yourself having victory. But sometimes what happens is, in terms of even cultivating a very strong habit, sometimes what happens is that when you fail at some point, you just give up. So I can't do this battle again, let me just give up. well, that is an attack on you. Because if you give up, when you go down, it becomes so difficult for you to get up again. So you must ensure that you just keep, when you go down, you get up again. When you go down, you get up again. Just keep getting up. Don't fall to the ground. So ensure that you're going to say, I'm making commitment. I'm going to be faithful with my eyes. I'm going to be faithful with my lips. I'm going to be faithful with my hand. And I'm going to be faithful with my leg. Where does your leg lead you to? Where do you go to? You need to just do that. And that's the Bible. When the Bible says, no, flee sexual immorality, meaning that you should not negotiate with it. You should just run for your life. So it's important that the Lord will help us. So just burn your ship. Practice the Simper Fideli's motto. Always be faithful. I hope this has helped you today as we talked about the concept of the season of marriage. The season of marriage is called for total commitment. Either when it is good, when it's bad, you just have to soak it up as a father, as a husband, and you just continue in this battle. So we'll be back again next week to talk about even our seasons of temptation and our seasons of trials. How can we really become point men at this particular and crucial time? God bless you. I hope you're blessed with today's episode. We just ask that the Spirit of God will just help us, will give us the grace to just stand and to be faithful and to be committed to the end. And remember, again, being faithful, it means that you just need to keep one another safe. So if you're struggling with something, look for someone, look for a man that is stronger than you, that can really help you in this journey. Don't go and look for men that will encourage you and say, wait, every man cheats. No, every man don't cheat. And so it's important you know that. Don't buy that lie of the devil. Don't buy that lie of the enemy. Everybody is not doing it. And that's what the devil tells you. Everybody's doing it. So, well, then let me do no. But it's just that you're in the wrong company. When you're in the wrong company, you hear that everybody does it. But when you're in the right company, you know that there are people that are resisting. There are men that are fighting and keeping their family safe and keeping their generations safe. I hope you become men like Jonathan Edward. God bless you. Bye-bye.